have been telling you in other videos, if you have watched them, that I would share Benjamin's traumatic brain injury story with you at some point. And I decided tonight's the night. So if this is the first video of mine you're watching, welcome. My name is Monica Tidyman. I live in Nebraska and I share about young living, but I also share about trials and things that I have learned over the years that can give hope to others. And I want to share tonight about our year-long plus struggle with finding answers to my son's concussion headaches and the stomach aches that he was experiencing. In the hopes that it gives other people some ideas of directions to look for. I did not know until the end, almost the end of our journey, that there was such a thing as a brain injury support group, that there was such a thing as a traumatic brain injury alliance, I think it's called, BIA. I did not know those resources were out there and available for me, and so I hope by doing a video about this and by putting tags on here and things that people will be able to find this video and that they will have more resources if they are going through something similar with a loved one, and will have ideas of how to pursue that. And so I did this video last night and it took me an hour to tell the whole story. So tonight I did a timeline and I hope to do it in a half hour. I can't guarantee it, but I'm going to try to get through this in a half hour, okay? So a little back history. Benjamin is our soon-to-be 18-year-old son. He is our youngest son. He is super smart. He's active. He's loves cars. He loves anything with racing, and his goal is to, well, that kind of changes, but he's going into building construction, and he knows he will have to do big construction, but he's kind of hoping, at one point he was hoping to have like his own cabinet shop someday and do cabinet work and kind of more small woods craftsman work, because he really enjoys that. So we'll see. But there's a little back history for you on Benjamin, and that's the Benjamin now. So we're going to start with his story, and his story actually begins in 4th grade. Benjamin received his first concussion in 4th grade, and that was by far the worst concussion that he had. In 4th grade, when he was horsing around, backstory there, he was horsing around with just his brothers at home. We have 3 boys. He is the youngest of 3. So he was riding on one of their backs, and they had a hold of his legs, and he lost his grip on their shoulders, and he fell over and was just tall enough to hit his head on the floor, like the back of his head. From that concussion, he seemed fine. We kind of watched him for a while, and then he began to forget homework. He forgot assignments. He forgot things he was supposed to do during class time. And his teacher talked to us, and it was like, she said, it's like he didn't even remember me saying it. And luckily, I worked at the school at that time. I was doing subbing as para in the kitchen, in the office. We live in a very small town, small school district, so people fill a number of hats. So I went and talked to a couple of the people at our school who were volunteer EMTs in our town and asked them, could this be a concussion? Could this be causing this? They said yes. So we went to the doctor. The doctor knew what questions to ask and said, yes, he definitely has a concussion. With that concussion, we followed, protocol of keeping him out of sports, any activities for a few weeks until his headaches stopped, because he was having headaches. Within 2 weeks of this concussion, he needed glasses because he could not see the whiteboard anymore, couldn't see the Promethean board, things the teacher was doing at the front of the classroom. So we went and got glasses. That summer, he had a lot of headaches with heat or with exercise or both, or just being out in the sun. I would say 4th grade is when Benjamin became a habitual sunglass wearer, and he wears them all the time. Also with that, something I didn't notice until it was past, but it was almost a full year before I had Benjamin back. His mood changed. He was not the same kid, and it wasn't until I had Benjamin back that I realized he hadn't really been there. And unless you've experienced that, you don't really know what I'm talking about, but they tell you there are mood changes with concussions, and they're right. So it was a bad concussion. And so we did not let him play in like Little League football here in fifth and sixth grade when he could have, and we tried to just monitor what he was doing. He was more susceptible to headaches after that concussion. And still, even after that first summer, he would still, heat and sunlight, the intense sun in the summer and things still caused headaches for, maybe a couple of years. Okay, so that was concussion number one. According to the doctor's records, we had a possible concussion in 7th grade basketball. Neither Benjamin or I remember that, but the doctor has it down that we, stopped in and said he might have got a concussion. But what I'll tell you is from that 4th grade concussion on, Benjamin was always more susceptible to headaches. Getting bonked in the head, things like that caused headaches. So he just had more headaches. So I can't tell you about that. What I do know is that in 8th grade, we let him play football in junior high. We thought his brain had healed enough, less susceptible to getting another one. Football was his dream. He wanted to be an NFL football player, so we tried it. So 8th grade, second to the last game, he tackles a guy and gets hit in the chin and gets his head knocked back by the guy's foot. And that was enough to give him a pretty severe headache that lasted for probably 2 or 3 days. So we knew that was a concussion. By this time, they had done the concussion testing that they do before a sport, so they have a baseline, and they will not do that testing to release them back into sports until they can be headache free. I think it's for 2 days, and it took probably almost 3 weeks before he could pass the concussion testing. So he missed the last game of his 8th grade football career, and we no longer let him play football because he had 2 for sure concussions, and we wanted him to have a brain someday. We didn't want to have him suffer effects as an adult from multiple concussions, and so that was our choice, not to let him play football. But he did play basketball, he did play track, and he participated in football as much as he could, as he was the student manager, and they let him be as active as a student manager as probably anybody's ever been. Like, he would run routes for the quarterbacks and catch their passes. He would do, catch for kickers or kick or whatever. He would do whatever he could that wasn't going to involve contact. The coaches were very protective of him. The coaches also asked us numerous times if he couldn't please play football, because that was his natural gifting and talent. And we said no. Even with all the pressure, we continued to say no, because we valued his brain. And usually once we explained that 4th grade concussion and how severe it was, they were totally understanding of it. So I'm not criticizing the coaches at all. They just love him, and they love to see him play, and so they wanted to be able to let him play, but that wasn't possible. So he was filming. He went to games and he filmed, and then he did that for student manager. Now, he would get occasional headaches running in track. He was typically an 800, 400 runner, and then he jumped, triple jump, and high jump. And sometimes with running, at the end of a run, he would have a really bad headache, and we kind of contributed it to the sun and the heat and how he would get the headaches, and they became more migraine-like, because the only way to get rid of that headache once he got one was to go lay with like a towel or a t-shirt over his face to block the sun, and it would take hours for that headache to go away. And it wouldn't matter if we gave him Tylenol, ibuprofen, whatever, he still had the headache. And I'm a migraine sufferer. My mom is a migraine sufferer. Our oldest son has had migraines, and so we knew we were dealing with migraines, but we didn't understand what from. And so that would happen with running. We even went so far as to get like runner's sunglasses that wrap around, so that to help him run, and the track officials would let him wear those during track meets. They didn't help. So that takes us up to sophomore year. And sophomore year, he participated just as always, and did basketball. And then in track, he got a headache every time he ran. Like, he would not run full out in practice because he knew he would get a headache. But when it came time for track meets, he would run, hard. You want to win. And he was also competing against his brother, and he wanted to beat his brother's times. And so he had a lot of headaches. Even the sophomore year was the year that he ran maybe 2 track meets, and it was to the point where I had to meet him at the finish line, or his brother, if he wasn't running in the same heat, met him at the finish line, and he would grab onto us and lay his head on our shoulder and just sob because his head, at the finish line, because he felt like his head was just going to explode. And he was done. He was done for the day after that. Typically, he ran either the 4x8 or the 800, and then he was done. And so I told the coach, this isn't worth it. We've got to figure out what's going on with him, and he can jump, but that's it. So we started going to doctors. And I say doctors because this was the beginning of our journey. We went to our general practitioner, family doctor, and the first thing he did was say it was something like to do with blood pressure. He thought maybe his blood pressure was bottoming out during exercise, because I have low blood pressure, my husband has low blood pressure, and Benjamin does too. So we thought that was maybe it. So the doctor recommended that he take Sudafed an hour before he ran, or he would drink a high caffeinated drink an hour before he ran. And the goal was to get his blood pressure up high enough that he could run and not get the headache. That didn't help. It actually made things worse. So that was not the solution. We went back to the doctor maybe a couple more times. And then Benjamin started to get stomach aches also. And the stomach aches were sometimes just in the morning, sometimes at random times during the day, but they got to be where they were every single morning, and he was miserable. I mean, like, pale-faced, wanting to puke, miserable. And they would typically pass by 10:30 or 11, maybe. He has had what I always called a nervous stomach. As a child, going to kindergarten, he kind of struggled for a couple of days. There, changes would kind of make him stomach, but he grew out of that. So we weren't sure that was it. His brother, that was the next up, so the middle son, Aaron, was graduating that year, so we didn't know if that was bothering him, because Benjamin and Aaron are super close friends. They're more than brothers, they are friends. And we thought, well, maybe with Aaron graduating and considering, facing high school and everything without Aaron next year, maybe that's bothering him. So we did, we're going to the doctor anyway for headaches, so we asked about the stomach aches. And the doctor just wasn't coming up with anything. Aaron, our middle son, also has celiac and type 1 diabetes. So we ran autoimmune tests. We ran the test for celiac. We ran, all sorts of blood work, and we weren't coming up with anything. And so our doctor finally recommended we needed to go to specialists. So we went to a GI doctor, and again, ran all the blood, ran all the tests, and nothing was showing up. So she started trying some different medicines. He was on like Zantac and those type of medicines to try to help, and then we went to a prescription strength. They weren't helping. So we're now into the summer. We went to a neurologist, and the neurologist that we went to, I gotta speed up. The neurologist we went to was not a good one, partially because we were like, we just want to see a neurologist, and to wait for the good one was going to be a month's long wait. And it was like, no, he needs a doctor now. We need to figure this out now. So we took whatever appointment our doctor could get us at whatever neurologist. Wait for the good ones. If you know there's a good one, wait. Get on their waiting list, do whatever. This doctor was, let's just say he had no bedside manner, and I swore I would never see the man again. We'll leave it there because I'm running short on time already. But he did diagnose Benjamin with post-concussive exercise-induced migraines. And he recommended that he go see a neuropsychologist because there was some forgetfulness still and some memory issues, we thought, but how much is teenage boys and how much is related to the concussions, we didn't know. So he recommended going to a neuropsych because if there were some deficits, then we could identify those now and prepare him for the rest of his life. So we did that, and that was flying colors. Everything was great. A test that was supposed to take 3 hours, he was done in like an hour and a half because he just had no deficits. So that was great. That was encouraging, but still no answers. So let me look at my timeline. I had to do a timeline here. We'd been to the gastrointestinal doctor a few times. Then we went, okay, so then we'd seen neuropsych, we'd seen this, we weren't really getting results. We were starting to talk about doing an endoscopy to see if we could figure out what was going on with his stomach, because I was literally in August, September, I was sending my son out the door every day, my junior in high school, in tears because his stomach hurt so bad. And I knew psychologically if I started, I just thought, if this is still nerves and I let him start staying home, I'll never get him back to school. And so I had to harden my heart and send my child out the door in tears most days because his gut hurt so bad. I mean, he would sleep until 5 minutes before he literally had to be out the door. And he would get up, brush his teeth, change his clothes, try not to puke, and go to school. And we lived 5 minutes from school, small town. So he would go to school. At some point in all of this journey, he had lost 30 pounds. And he is a 6'2", maybe 162 healthy kid. And he was down at one point, I know, to 127 pounds. That's how bad we were. We were bad. And it was scary. And I shed a lot of tears. And we had no answers and no solutions. So then in September, it's homecoming. And our school has started doing homecoming day up big. And, again, he's not on football. He's not doing these things. But he was playing on, they bought some bouncy house type equipment, the inflatables, and playing on one of those. Long story short, somebody threw something that was very hard and large, and it hit him on this side of the face, just hit him right here, snapped his head back. But he said, the impact he felt there, instant headache, instant. By the time Philip and I got out to the school for the homecoming game at 6, he was sick to his stomach. He had a horrible headache. He ended up missing the homecoming dance. His poor girlfriend went by herself. I'm not even sure if he went. When she went, maybe she didn't, because he couldn't go. And he came home and went to sleep. Okay, now, something you have to understand as part of our story is headaches were a normal occurrence in Benjamin's life. If Benjamin got hit in the head, getting a headache was a normal occurrence. And we were in such crisis mode at this point. I mean, just trying to put one foot in the other, trying to get through each day, that it never occurred to us that this was another concussion, that he had basically got a concussion on top of all the concussion effects that he was already experiencing. Didn't cross anybody's mind that Benjamin had had another concussion until December, and so I'll explain that here in a second too. So we had the endoscopy in October. Everything was fine. Before the endoscopy in October, or maybe right around that same time, we saw another neurologist at Children's Hospital, and that appointment didn't go well either. That's the best way to say that. At one point in the appointment, she had talked about doing concussion physical therapy, and then she kind of summed up the visit by saying, maybe just make sure his blood sugar stays up and he stays hydrated, and this will all pass. I've been dealing with this since May. I don't think hydration and some blood sugar issues is gonna solve it, lady. And I think she saw that on my face. I think I almost came out of the chair, ready to stand up and shout at her. And she said, or I could write you a prescription for concussion therapy. Yes, let's do that. Let's try something. Well, then, because we are 2 hours away from Children's Hospital, the nearest Children's Hospital, she said, well, here's your prescription, and just find a physical therapist that can do concussion therapy for you. Great. Okay. I know how to do that. I have time to do that. Isn't this my job? So long story short, because I'm trying to keep this short, but we found a physical therapist who was not trained in Buffalo concussion therapy. Look that up. Very important if you have a child who has a concussion. I think most places are implementing it now, but there is a Buffalo concussion protocol to get athletes back on the field after a concussion. Because what we're finding out is that their brains kind of have this, they need a retraining time. Like some athletes can't get back on the field or can't get back to the physical place they were because their brain stops them. And there was a thought that maybe that's what was going on with Benjamin, like when he would start exercising, because at this point, before this, okay, so Benjamin had went through the summer and done basketball camps and had no problems or anything. And then all of a sudden, when basketball started in November, Benjamin couldn't even get through a practice without a headache. He would come home from a practice with a 3-hour headache. And that was only after getting through 5 minutes, 20 minutes of practice, maybe. 20 minutes would be like a huge victory for him to get that far. So he had to quit basketball. I mean, he went and he sat there and he did like some standard shooting, but he wasn't able to participate in practices. And we're all like, what happened? What was the difference between this summer? Well, now we know the September headache and homecoming incident was a concussion, and that he was still healing from that concussion. But we didn't think of that at that time. So we are now into December. He starts doing Buffalo protocol physical therapy at a physical therapy place twice a week. And it wasn't until the winter dance, which was later in December, that it occurred to us he had another concussion. Because I thought, oh, I hope he doesn't miss this dance too. And it was like, miss this dance too? Oh my gosh, he probably had a concussion. That's probably why he can't play basketball. And all this started falling into place. And it helped the physical therapist to know that, okay, we're dealing with a concussion recovery. Like, this isn't long term. This was a recent concussion. But still, with the Buffalo protocol, you're supposed to be able to advance a little bit, like on the treadmill. You're supposed to be able to go a little farther. You're supposed to be able to raise the incline, do things that get your heart rate up. And they were not able to do that with Benjamin. If they tried to progress at all, he still got headaches. He wasn't even making it through the full hour of physical therapy because if they tried to advance anything, he got the headaches. So we were still no solutions. He had the endoscopy and nothing had shown up on that, which was good, but also bad because, again, no answers. Because of that neurologist who said to raise his blood sugar and keep him hydrated, the only good thing that came out of that was the realization that, he's going to school with no breakfast because he feels sick. And he's waiting till lunch to eat. No wonder the kid is losing weight, So that did trigger a response in me that I started sending lots of snacks to school with him. Crackers, fruit cups, things that he could eat between classes or even in classes. Teachers were very understanding because by 10:30 his stomach would settle down and he would be able to eat. And so that actually helped start a weight gain process happening. And one of the medicines that the GI doctor put him on, he did actually start to gain a little bit of weight back. Still having the stomach aches, still not able to do exercise, still not participating in his activities that he loves. He couldn't even participate in basketball now. Okay, so when physical therapy couldn't do anything, this was in a neighboring town that's a bigger town, has bigger hospitals and things here, and the physical therapist said, I'd like you to go to this concussion clinic that is at our hospital and see what you can do. And I'm like, great, there's a concussion clinic. That sounds promising. Why didn't I know about this 6 months ago? So we went, this was probably in January, February. We went to, January, February of 2018. So Benjamin's a junior in high school. Yeah. And we went to the concussion clinic. The first thing the doctor says is, I'm not a neurologist, I'm not a specialist. We just created this clinic so that there was a centralized place to send concussions, because they were seeing in this bigger town with more schools, what they were seeing was kids would get a concussion. They would go to the doctor to get cleared, and the doctor wouldn't clear them, and they would just keep hitting doctors until somebody cleared them and they could go back to sports. And then that first doctor would see the kid on the field and be like, no way should he be out there. So the doctors all got together and created this centralized concussion clinic with one doctor who saw all concussions in this area to hopefully help these kids. So he did a bunch of stuff with Benjamin, a bunch of testing and thing, and then he recommended two things. He recommended we start on this medicine that is actually an antidepressant, and they prescribe it for depression. It's prescribed in large doses, like 150 milligrams or higher. But they have had success with this with people who are headache sufferers like this for taking it in small doses, and we're talking like 10 milligrams. So he suggested that. And we actually had another appointment with our GI doctor in 2 days. And I said, okay, let me talk to my GI doctor, see what her plan of attack is, and then we'll go from there. And then he also said he wanted us to go to Madonna Rehabilitation Center in Lincoln, Nebraska, and get a full workup, like neuropsych. They do like some Buffalo concussion testing down there. And, you know, this is the place that they help rehab brain injury patients. So they're like, he wanted them to see everybody, the whole gamut, and get fully tested. I'm like, great, that sounds fabulous. Let's do that. So we went to the GI doctor, and in a great God thing, she recommended the same medicine for his stomach, because however this medicine works in the body with kind of, I don't want to say deadening, lessening maybe the sensitivity of the nerve, which I'm blanking right now of, that runs from the brain to the stomach, might help both the headaches and the stomach. Okay, quick pause. If you have not watched my video on the brain-gut connection, go watch that next. This is all, the brain-gut connection is all things that I learned in September of 2018, and I had started to hear some of this stuff, but it was not stuff I knew when we were fighting with brain-gut issues, and it just makes so much sense. And, you know, as a mom, I cannot look back with regret. I did the best I could with the knowledge I had at the time, and that's what I always tell myself, and that's how I feel about it. But do I wish I would have known these things? Yeah, I really do. But I did the best I could with what I knew, and now I know better, and I know things to help him even now. So there we go. Get that out there. So he got put on the medicine by both the GI doctor and the concussion clinic. We went to Madonna Rehab Center, and we saw a neuropsychologist again. Okay, we've already done this. He passed with flying colors. Why are we doing this again? Well, he's had another concussion in September. Okay, that makes sense. You know, so we did that, and then they were like, okay, that's all we have. And I'm like, wait, he was supposed to see a bunch of doctors. He was supposed to get all this done. They're like, nope, this is the only thing the concussion clinic requested. Really? I mean, I left so disheartened. And Benjamin did too. I mean, we went to that appointment thinking this is going to be our answers. We're going to find all the answers at this appointment. And to do the same thing that we've already done, not see anything new, try nothing new, we were very bummed out. This was starting to just break us. It was breaking us. I mean, this has been over a year now that we've been dealing with this daily headaches. I mean, the headaches had stopped being just exercise induced and had become daily headaches. And maybe not always at migraine level, but they were powerful headaches that would last for hours. And Tylenol didn't help, ibuprofen didn't help, you know, nothing helped. So I was at a library meeting, and I called the concussion clinic doctor and said, what now? And he said, well, I'm waiting for the rest of the test results. I said, what test results? And he's like, well, you should have seen like 5 or 6 doctors. And I'm like, nope, saw one, saw a neuropsychologist again. And he apologized, you know, and was sorry that orders had gotten mixed up. But through that conversation, he said, well, I don't know. What do you want to do now? I broke at that moment. Not that I hadn't broken many times during this, but actually talking to a doctor, I broke. And I started crying on the phone with a doctor in a library parking lot. And I said, you're supposed to tell me what to do next. You're supposed to tell me how to help my child now. You know, well, I don't know. I don't know anything else to do. And I was like, I have a child who is steadily becoming depressed because he can't do his life, and he's a junior in high school, and I was done. So a conversation had continued to come back to me, and I'm like, hurrying, sorry, I'm not going to quite make 30 minutes. But the conversation was with a eye doctor in our eye doctor clinic in the summer of 2017. She had did Benjamin's visual exam instead of the normal doctor, just for whatever reason, and she had mentioned in 2017 that his one of his eyes seemed to maybe have a little muscle difficulty, like it wasn't as strong as the other one. And I was like, okay, and I explained to her about his 2 concussions at that time. And she was like, well, if you ever want to try vision therapy, come talk to me, because that's what I do. She was fairly new at this clinic. And she was like, that's what I do and kind of what I was hired to help with. And she said, I did my internship with hockey players in the NHL who had had concussions. So this conversation had come back to me a couple of times in that week. And so on the way home from Lincoln, which is where I was doing this library meeting, I stopped at York, which is our local eye clinic. And I walked in. Remember, I am at my wit's end at this point. I walked in and I tried to explain to the receptionist what I was wanting done. And Dr. Faith actually walked past and heard me mention concussions and heard me mention vision therapy. She was leaving for the day and she came up. Okay, quick little side note. I am like 6 foot tall and I'm large. I am not a small woman. Okay, I'm not huge, but I'm not a small woman. And Dr. Faith is about, 5 foot or something. I mean, she's significantly smaller than me. She's a runner. She's super petite. And she came up to me and she said, I heard you mention concussions and vision therapy. What's going on? I lost it. Again, right there in the eye clinic lobby, I'm crying. And I'm trying to talk to her and tell her what's wrong. And she looks me in the eye, puts her arms up on my shoulders, and she said, we're going to help you. It's okay. I still almost tear up because nobody had said anything with that much confidence in all of this that we had done. No one had been able to look at me with confidence and say, I can help your child. Now, I will say the physical therapist had really great hopes that he would be able to, and he tried. I mean, he was heartbroken that he could not help Benjamin, and so I had to give him props because he really thought he could, and it just, when it didn't work, he was heartbroken too. But she was really the only one that I felt like, she was going to help him. This was going to fix him. So we did an evaluation with her and found out that Benjamin had great deficits in his depth perception, and his brain would literally shut off one eye. It was like his brain would just take that nerve and shut it off, clamp it off. And so a lot of times he was only using one eye. We had no idea. Really, all of this probably goes back to his 4th grade concussion, when those vision problems started, when he couldn't see the board and stuff. Because, he's played sports for years and had no problems. And she was like, with this depth perception issue and some of the other stuff, she's like, he shouldn't be able to be catching balls and doing things, basketballs and stuff. So what happened was she put him on a 24-week program of vision therapy. Now, this is not cheap. Our vision therapy 24-week plan, I think it costs $3,400. At this point, and insurance doesn't cover it. At this point, I didn't care. I am a debt-free, Dave Ramsey, all the way cash envelope person, but I came home and told my husband, if we have to put it all on a credit card to pay for this, we're going to do it. Because if it'll help him, we're doing it. Also, during the exam, she asked if anybody had ever given him an MRI. Nope, nobody ever had. She was in total shock. So she got us in contact with a sports doctor that she works with in Central City, Nebraska. Again, another, closer town. And she said, he'll help you. He's really good and he can help you. So we went and saw him. We had the MRI done. Everything's clear. He agreed with the course of protocol that Benjamin was on with his headache medicine and using it also for the gastrointestinal issues. And we're at 34 minutes, but he also, during this time, in trying to find the answer to his headaches, I had taken him to an allergist because he had had several hive breakouts to things like brome grass bales. Dogs licking him would cause a lot of itching and even some hives. And what finally kind of kicked for me was he got scratched by a cat when he was snowed in at a friend's house, and it just drove him crazy. I mean, he called me asking if he could take Benadryl. And I looked at my husband, I said, allergies can cause migraines. So we took him to an allergist, and this kid lit up with everything. I mean, grass, corn pollen, weeds, dogs, cats. His whole back lit up. If you've ever seen an allergy test done, they do it on the back. So he was also on 3 allergy medicines by this point and getting allergy shots. Now, since then, I've been told that stress can cause allergies to come out, and I firmly believe that's what happened with him, because since that time, he now gets, instead of weekly allergy shots, he gets every other week allergy shots, and he has been able to wean himself off of all of his allergy meds except the Flonase nasal spray, and he doesn't have any issues. So as we have healed his issues, those allergies have gone away. So this doctor, the sports doctor, prescribed, agreed with what we were doing, wanted to see him after a few weeks of vision therapy to see how things were going, and we continued to see him every few weeks throughout the summer. He's very knowledgeable about what weightlifting Benjamin could do, things to get him back into being active and doing things, because his headaches were now being controlled by the medicine he was on. We weren't having as many headaches. The stomach aches had finally stopped, and things were going well. So by the end of the summer, Benjamin had completed his 12 weeks, at least 12 weeks of vision therapy, and he was back. By 12 weeks of vision therapy, they had him start running. Now, his doctor was a runner, and so she was able to tell him, this is how fast I want you to go. I want you to be able to talk. I want you to be able to run this distance at this speed. So she was very specific with him, which was nice. And when we had the 12-week checkup, I cried. I cried at the 12-week checkup because I had been there for the original checkup and watched him fail these tests that she had him do. I mean, not able to do the colorblind stuff, not able to do the depth perception stuff, not able to see a lot of the stuff that she wanted him to see. And at 12 weeks, he flew through stuff. Now, it was not perfect, and he still had a ways to go, but he was flying through stuff. So here we are in January of 2019, because I want to sum this up real fast. But he is off of all of his allergy meds, like I said, down to Flonase, doing allergy every other week. He has stopped taking the headache medicine. He has been completely off of all stomach meds since probably spring of 2018. He's probably been off of all of those. We still have him take a probiotic and a prebiotic because of everything I've learned with gut-brain health. We need to keep that gut healthy. This kid needs a little protection here. So we do that. We take a Young Living probiotic and prebiotic. And then, he's playing basketball this year, guys. This is 2019. He missed the whole 2018 season. He earned his varsity uniform back. He is not playing in a lot of games, but he's still happy. He's happy that he's practicing. He's happy he's back with the team. He is grateful for where he is. And so it doesn't bother him not to play a whole lot. He's just grateful that he's not dealing with daily headaches. He's not dealing with stomach aches. I mean, when we look at where we were last year in January to this year in January, night and day. Totally night and day difference. I can't even explain to you the difference in our family, the difference in my kid, the difference for me as a mom, not being super stressed dealing with all of this stuff that I was dealing with. And it was vision therapy. Vision therapy was our answer. When he got through the vision therapy, even just a couple of weeks into the vision therapy, he could tell a difference. By the time he did 24 weeks, it was amazing. So 24 weeks vision therapy, God thanks, we never had to put a single dime of that vision therapy on our credit card. We were able to pay for each visit as it came and never had an issue with coming up with the money for vision therapy. That's huge. Compared to last year and all the doctors and things were just not there. So I just want to give hope. Maybe you're in the middle of a journey like this. Maybe you were recovering from a concussion again. You are not alone. Others have been there, others are there. This goes on so much more than we ever dreamed about knowing. So I want to give you hope that there are answers. Keep fighting for your child, for your loved one, for yourself. Don't stop. Research, look for answers, follow people, go to that Brain Injury Alliance. I did not find out about that until this spring. I wished I would have known about that a year ago. And unfortunately, there are people who never recover fully from concussions. I know of people who don't. I know of a good friend that I'm in Moms in Prayer with who had a stroke at a very young age, that she is still dealing with things that maybe are part of that brain injury from that. And so brain injuries are serious, and they're not lighthearted, and they don't go away, and your friends and family may never understand what you're going through, but there are people who do understand. And so if I can give you a little bit of hope, I hope that this video does. I hope that you find the answers that you need right now to give you that hope. If you're not a believer in Jesus Christ, I hope that you can find something that brings you joy and hope. And maybe it is Jesus. Maybe seek him out. Because for me, doing all of this without Jesus, I never would have made it. He is my comforter. He's my refuge. He is my strength and my shield. I firmly believe he guided every step of this journey, even when it seems crazy and hopeless. And why did it take so many months? I trust him, and that he has the answers. So anyway, okay, I've talked long enough. I'm almost at 45 minutes. Sorry. But this is to let you know you're not alone, and that there is hope, and to keep looking for answers. So I'm going to tag this with like brain injuries and concussion recovery and all that, and I hope it reaches the people who need it. And when you're done with this one, go watch the gut-brain connection. You will learn a lot about your gut and your brain and how they affect each other, and how important it is to keep both of them healthy. Okay, have a good day, night, and I just pray that you find the answers you're needing.